Battlefield. Battlefield 2042. I've played about 6 to 7 hours of the beta so far. Got a decent amount of game time under my belt for a initial impressions video. Obviously not a review, because I'm not going to be one of those people who say that this is a definitive review of a game that is only in beta with one map and barely any options, especially a Battlefield game, but it is an initial impressions idea. As you can tell from the title of the video, my thoughts are a bit mixed, but maybe will sound more negative than they actually are. I try to be pretty positive when I talk about games, but in this situation, I feel like in order to get my point across, I need to make it sound more negative than it actually is. For example, I actually very much enjoyed my time playing this game. I think it has a decent amount of problems. Some of them bugs, some of them builds, some of them identity. And I've got an identity crisis, which I realize is kind of a pun right now, or ironic considering the crisis comparisons we will be talking about soon. But the gameplay, I enjoyed. I had a good time playing this game through the period of time that I played it. That being said, I think I probably complained more about the game during my good time. I feel like a Destiny player, and I finally reached that point where I play a game a ton and complain about it equally. Anyway, Battlefield 2042's beta launched with its 4 classes, a minimal amount of weapons, and only one map. And immediately, when I got into it, I said to myself, wow, this doesn't really look a whole lot like Battlefield. This looks a lot like Battlefield mixed with Modern Warfare, 2019 that is. And the more I played the game, the more I really started to realize that that thought process was pretty apt. And then I started getting concepts and ideas from other games as well. Thing is, when playing this game, I would describe it as, well, identity crisis is one thing, but I would describe it as someone trying to recreate Battlefield from memory. Because as far as I'm concerned, the only really Battlefield feeling parts of this game were the vehicles, the constantly getting shot from when you already were behind a wall, and the running through an open field for 30 minutes only to get sniped by 40 snipers on a tower. And that's pretty Battlefield, not gonna lie. That's very Battlefield. And yet, I still did enjoy myself. The comparisons to Modern Warfare are, I think, in a combination both fair and a little bit more egregious than I thought they would end up being. For example, the gameplay does feel more arcadey. It definitely feels a little bit less on the hyper-realistic Battlefield side of things, and a lot more on the arcade shooter side of things, which of course Call of Duty is generally known for. But then adding in mechanics to the game, it starts to feel, like I said, very much like Modern Warfare. The parachuting feeling, the parachuting mechanics in general, how you cut it, fly down, all that stuff, is not necessarily something that is entirely a Warzone thing, but it definitely has a gameplay feel to it. And that's when I first started off having this sneaking suspicion. Then, when I pressed shift to sprint, and then when I press shift again to sprint, my character goes into a sort of super sprint. Very similar to Modern Warfare. In fact, so similar that the character literally holds their weapon in an identical pose when they do their super sprint. The concept is that sprinting normally gives you a speed boost but makes aiming down sights slower, and a super sprint accentuates both, even faster, ADSing even slower. So, you sacrifice handling for speed. But then, after the super sprint goes, there was also the melee, which I found out, one, looks very janky, but that could be a beta issue. But then if you melee someone from behind, you immediately transport yourself into third person and then do an execution, which looks quite a bit like Modern Warfare. And then there's equipment that you can add in order to give yourself armor. You can place yourself an armor plate to give yourself basically an extra bit of health. And that armor plate, gotta say, looks a lot like Modern Warfare. And at this point, I was not necessarily disliking the game for it in terms of a gameplay perspective, because I like Modern Warfare. 2019 was a pretty darn good game. I like it a lot, which is probably why I did enjoy this game. But some of those comparisons, especially the execution and especially the super sprint, feel just like almost as if they didn't try to differentiate it. It's very similar. Very similar. And then the other major comparisons started to crop up. Example, bottom right-hand corner of your screen is your HUD. Now, I like this new HUD. It shows your health on the top. It also shows your primary, secondary, and your gadgets. But when I fire a gadget, like let's say the zip line here, and it needs to recharge, do you notice how it recharges? Looks a little similar to something, doesn't it? Because, yeah, it looks literally identical to the Destiny UI. It's simply on the other side, and it's health instead of super energy. But it looks and operates extremely similarly to the Destiny UI. And then you go to the weapon system, where you can adjust attachments on the fly, and that is basically identical to the Crisis system. Now, with me saying all these things, you might ask, well, is taking stuff from other games really a bad thing? And in a vacuum, no. No, many games take stuff from other games, and they tend to succeed with it very well. But often when they take stuff from other games, they kind of make it their own. Taking a concept is fine, but then you kind of got to give it its own feeling. You know, even Halo Reach, when it added sprint, it was an armor ability. You had to sacrifice an option. It was its own thing. Halo 5 made it so that when you sprint, your shields didn't recharge. So it kind of gave you a little bit of an in-between on that. There was a risk involved. However, I think it's just the sheer amount of stuff that's being taken, and the fact that this game doesn't really feel like it plays like a Battlefield game. Besides the things I mentioned before, which is the vehicle combat, getting shot around corners, and sniped in a big open field. The gameplay feels like someone wanted to create their baby of Modern Warfare and Battlefield, but the mom smoked a little bit too much during the pregnancy. Because, oh god, are the bugs in this rampant. But I don't want to talk too much about that, because naturally, as a beta, it's not necessarily something that I really can concern myself with a massive amount of bugs with, especially considering that apparently the build is a couple months old. But it does give me a little bit of pause, considering that it's supposed to be out in around a month. Combining that as some of the other hallmark Battlefield stuff, the aircraft, especially the attack helicopters, are pretty insanely strong. They always are. DICE does not know how to balance attack helis. They never have. They're very, very powerful. The class system certainly needs a bit of work. Now, most of the classes have a singular gadget and kind of a perk to them. For example, the Assault class has the slingshot, but it also allows you to have better accuracy on things like zip lines and such, where the Medic class can heal anyone back to full health, but they also have a syringe gun that ends up giving you a little bit extra health when you shoot somebody. But these classes feel non-realized, because there's the sentry gun guy, who's not too bad, and then there's also the recon guy with his little drone, which I personally think is the worst class in the game. Actually, no, I think the medic is the worst class in the game, because you can revive your own squad mates with the paddles, but when you do the animation to revive someone, you are locked to basically standing still in a Battlefield game. No more running around with paddles and just slapping people with them. You're basically stuck there. And as a medic, you heal your person back to full, which is nice, but at the same time, that makes your syringe gun nigh useless. And then the recon has a little drone, which I don't like very much, and it has a heartbeat sensor, which is pretty obtrusive in the middle of the map. Not to mention that the map we got to play on is a gigantic open vehicle map where everyone congregates to the one side with the giant building, because that's the only side you can actually get legitimately good gunfights on. Everything else is running for an hour and a half, getting your cardio through the trees, which allows for some pretty mediocre target acquisition, because it is very difficult to see people through these trees. So, combining all these things, not a very good map, the game not really feeling like a Battlefield game, the overpowered aircraft, which they always are, at least for now, that's just normal, the bugs and all that, and the myriad of things taken from other games is weird to complain about because I still had a good time. It's so bizarre. It's like that old Reggie thing where if it's not fun, why bother, right? And it was fun. I had a good time overall. The weapon balancing was already kind of trash, not gonna lie. The sniper rifle and DMR was very poor, and the normal assault rifle as well as the Chris Vector SMG just shred people. But even so, being 1 month out from release, I've got some worry in there. It feels like Battlefield Identity Crisis with the sheer volume of stuff that they have taken from other games. The UI, the Modern Warfare stuff. The map they gave us was not very good, and the game was riddled with bugs. Now, I want to say beta. It's beta, it's beta, it's beta. But I've been around in life for long enough to realize that betas are not really just betas anymore. They are demos and server stress tests most of the time. So my skepticism, I feel like, is decently healthy. And it's one of those rare times where I ever talk bad on a game like this. But I like Battlefield. Even the ones that aren't as loved, like Battlefield, well, Battlefield 1 was enjoyed, but Battlefield 5, there's this kind of oomph to Battlefield 5 and 1. Like, the guns don't sound very good in this Battlefield. They sound rather wimpy. They feel like Back 4 Blood weapons. But yet the guns in 1, especially the shotgun, and 5, it has this feeling of real, like, sound effects. It's got chunk to it. And the sound that you get when you kill enemies, that little, like, ka-ching sound effect that it makes when you kill people in Battlefield 1 and 5, it's really satisfying. But, like I said, this feels like someone tried to recreate a Modern Warfare Battlefield hybrid from memory. Like, they try, it's like a painting that you know what it looks like, but you just can't describe. It's very odd. So that's why I deem this thing Battlefield Identity Crisis, because 6 to 7 hours of gameplay, did I have fun? Yeah. I enjoyed myself. But am I skeptical? Also, yeah. This did the exact opposite effect that the Halo Infinite beta did. I thought that Halo Infinite, especially after 4 and 5, was gonna suck. These tech tests have shown me otherwise. Battlefield 2042, I wasn't that hyped for because I don't get hyped for pre-rendered trailers like everyone else does. But now that I played the beta, I'm worried. I'm a bit skeptical. It comes out in a month. We'll see how it does. And I really hope that I'm wrong. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you soon.